condolences for not getting the convention, but you congratulated Charlotte. And tell us how you learned of the news and how you reacted and what your thoughts are going forward.
Well, I got a call from Tim Kaine, who's the chair of the Democratic Committee. He told me I collapsed to the floor in deep clinical depression for 2 minutes. They put paddles on me, revived me, and then I said, screw this, we're going to get back off the floor and we're going to compete for big things. So I wish we could have gotten the convention, but you know, we got Netroots, which I'm thrilled about. We're going to be a great host. We got the senior games. We're competing for the baseball all-star game. We're going to do other big things. I think it's really important for us to say we should be sick and tired of being America's best kept secret. We're an amazing city. People who come here love it. Hospitality is a Robin Hood industry that disproportionately gives money to those who really need it. And I'm going to keep making sure that we're compete for all this stuff. So yeah, we lost one, but we won some, and we're going to win some more.
Let's take a couple of those individually. We're very excited about Netroots as well. The UpTake
Thrilled
is.
about it.
You know, what does Netroots mean for Minneapolis? Will you attend, and what does it mean to you personally?
No, I'll definitely do it. You know, there was a window of opportunity because Netroots decided to rebid the convention. My son happened to have seen it. He called me immediately. I immediately called Netroots. We swung into action. We competed for it. We won. We're thrilled. You know, this is an incredibly tech-savvy city. The UpTake is clearly one of those things that we talk about being a great amenity here. And this is the kind of convention I definitely want to have. We are opinion leaders. We are a grassroots community. We should, of course, be a logical place for Netroots. And we're going to roll out the red carpet. And yeah, of course I'm going to go there. I'm real excited about this one.
Cool. The All-Star Game.
Yep.
A bit about that. When would that be? What needs to happen for that to?
I think the year we're competing for is 2014, if I remember right. That's just showing that we can be a good host and put together the good event, and we share the best ballpark for it.
Yeah. I mean, what are Minneapolis' best accolades, especially if you're willing to compare or contrast with other American cities?
Well, first off, you know, we get first, second, or third in almost any thing about what's a livable, fun city, great place to be. We got these awards a few years back. We got the most livable city, the most fun city, best city to sleep, cleanest city. I was trying to put all that together, and I thought, let's see, that means that we have a good time in bed, but it's good, clean fun, or so I don't know what the heck it is, but somehow there's, you know, it's a great image that we have. But the real bottom line on this thing is that it's great to, you know, welcome people from around the country, but the bottom line is the bottom line. Stop and think about it. Who works in the hotel? Who works in the restaurant? Who cleans the convention center? And think about the jobs. Often these are people who, if they didn't have those jobs, would be in public assistance. It's a great career ladder when you get in hospitality. You become a manager, you work your way up, hopefully own that small cleaning company, whatever. And that's really what we're trying to do with hospitality. I was bummed out. One of the many reasons I was bummed out about the Democratic convention is we'd had a lot of work that we'd done on trying to especially get businesses to small minority businesses, women-owned businesses. So we're going to keep doing that for hospitality too.
Did you get a chance to make a personal pitch to the Obamas for the DNC?
You know, I made a personal pitch to a lot of different places. I was with the president a couple times during the decision period, and once was to talk about jobs and health care, and another was a more social thing. And I thought, you know, I'm going to lobby everybody here, but this guy was trying to figure out what to do with the economy in Egypt and all of that.
Right.
So I decided not to. Mayor Fox and I were both in a meeting with the president 2 weeks ago, I guess, Mayor Fox of Charlotte, and both walking in, we said neither of us are going to go there. So,
that's nice. How much money could a big convention or a big event like the All-Star Game, how much money could the All-Star Game generate in Minneapolis?
You know, I can't remember that number off the top. I do remember the Democratic convention, that the Republican convention brought $160 million in direct economic aid or economic activity that week, which is a big thing. But you also have to remember that it's not just that weekend, it's how other people who book conventions then see this. So it has its ongoing effect. So it, you know, it's easily a couple $100 million to create jobs for people in hospitality. That's a lot. And so this is just a big business for us. And you know, I have my strengths and weaknesses and things I like and I don't like. But I think one of my strengths, and I think one thing I love, is to go out and sell the city. And I'm going to go out and do that and hopefully keep bringing business into town.
Of course, having the DNC would mean perhaps a massive security presence,
Yes.
demonstrations which are taken for granted, which could perhaps pose problems for your progressive base. I mean, was there any part of you that was relieved to some degree that it wasn't coming?
There were multiple people, including, just to be really honest, both of my past two chiefs of staff who said, there's a huge downside to doing this, and I get it. Mm-hmm. But let's look at a couple things. First off, the convention's going to take place somewhere. Mm-hmm. Second thing is, I think we learned a lot at the convention last time. We do some things the same, we do some things differently. Mm-hmm. I believe we could have set a really great standard on how to have free speech and have as much movement as we can while having the security that is a super unfortunate piece of reality now. Mm-hmm. But, I guess we're not going to have to cross that bridge. But, if there's another, heck, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a global conference on this or that may be controversial or something, I think we should welcome those in. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the place of opinion and discussion and just setting a level right that we're going to listen to the community about how to do this right. And we're also going to have to say that, unfortunately, in a post-Tucson world, you also realize that there's a very sad reality about what we've got to do now. There's no clear-cut answer on it. I think we could have navigated through it, and I'm confident we can do it if we track things in the future. Mm-hmm.
Let's switch gears to the Target Center.
Yep.
The renovations, you held a press conference yesterday with the Timberwolves owner. What was unveiled? What are the highlights? And, what's the reasoning for, what are the needs for a renovation?
Yeah. Well, first off, let me say what I don't think we should do much more of in this mm-hmm. community, which is to wait and wait and wait and not make ongoing investments in public facilities, and then when they're obsolete, come up with a hugely expensive plan forward. That's why we're doing what we're doing with Target Center, which is to say, okay, the building's 20 years old. It's been managed well, we've been invested in it, but it's starting to really show its age. Mm-hmm. Other communities have gone a lot further past it, and if we invest some now, we want to invest as much later. $150 million is a boatload of money, mm-hmm. but it's a whole lot less than Charlotte has just spent to build a whole new arena for $480 million. Mm-hmm. I don't like those sums, either of those sums of dollars, but I sure like $150 million more than $480 million. Mm-hmm. I don't like having to, when I'm trying to figure out how to put police on the street and fix the roads and all that, and we're trying to fix schools and everything else, I don't like, frankly, putting ballparks and stadiums in the middle of this discussion. Mm-hmm. But Target Center is one that, for better or worse, it's directly on the shoulders of the mayor and the residents of the city. Minneapolis, more than a decade ago, was put in a position where we wound up owning Target Center. And that's just a reality. It's not like somebody's out there going to buy it, okay? So that's our responsibility. So we have to invest in it. Now the good news is the owners of the Timberwolves and the people who booked the events have stepped up and said, we want to put some private money in too. So we're going to get in this tough discussion about a public-private negotiation about how you invest in that building. It's delivered $120 million in tax revenue to the state of Minnesota mm-hmm. over 20 years, 200 game nights a year, event nights a year, mm-hmm. including games, people from 87 counties in the state. And, we could have a community that doesn't have great places to get together, or we could invest in them. And again, I don't think there's a slam dunk way to get this thing done. I'm putting this challenge out there about something we need to do. How we do it is going to be part of a long discussion, and the priorities I have are to do it in a way that doesn't put any more burden on property taxpayers in Minneapolis, which it can't, that has some sort of equity around the region in doing it, but also makes some investment now so we don't have to do as much later. I could just say, look, this is a big problem, I'm not going to deal with it and avoid it, but I'd be passing on to the next person who sits in my chair mm-hmm. and the next group of people who live in this city. A bigger problem is going to be more expensive down the road.
Mm-hmm. But of course the renovations wouldn't be not just basketball related, right?
No, about 30% of the events in there are for the Timberwolves. The rest are for multiple other events. So it's everything from a bunch of family attractions. When my kids were little, we went to Disney on Ice and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of your viewers will be huge Justin Bieber fans.
Sorry, what was that?
Justin Bieber fans or Ultimate Fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are multiple things that go on in that thing. Jesse Ventura's inaugural. You know, so there are big events there, but it's kind of like a big living room. And that's what you invite people in for. The concerts that have been there have been great. And if you really think about what Target Field has done to downtown, just sort of the livability of downtown, a re-energized Target Center can also kind of create that atmosphere 12 months of the year, and I like that.
Would the money bring in, you know, totally new, different events that aren't coming in now, or improve existing structures?
You know, this is a really good question about how much does this just transfer dollars in the community and how much does it bring more in? And that's the kind of analysis we need to do to figure out how much investment there should be. But, you know, one is to make sure the Timberwolves stay viable, and part of that is to have a good facility. Part of that is on their part to keep improving the team. They got a long way to go, but they're doing well, better. The part of that is to be a competitive place for big attractions, and so the concert venues increasingly have come in there. Since we brought in the company called AEG to manage it, they manage a lot of national acts. They've been bringing in more national acts, and so we're getting better concerts to this region because of it. But you know, events come if you have a good venue, and they don't if you don't.
Speaking of,
oh, I'm sorry. One other point that I think is important is that I don't want to overemphasize this, but having a renovation that adds seats, adds some more revenue streams, meaning more suites and that kind of thing, helps make the team more competitive. So think a few years back. Think about when the Twins had like Bombo Rivera and Hoskin Powell, and they were the worst team ever, and they were playing in a bad ballpark, and people thought, you know, why invest in this thing? Well, the Twins got better, the ownership stepped up, did some more, they had a new ballpark, and it's an institution. I can see that same sort of thing with the Timberwolves. We can't break the bank to do it, we can't break our values to do it, but I think it's the right time to start asking the question.
Speaking of local sports teams that are a little down on their luck, can you tell us anything about the Metrodome, where we are right now?
Yeah,
I'm sure that's been a headache for you.
Well, I mean, you know, if just forget the Vikings on the field, just as, you know, a former journalist, been a heck of a story. This, I mean, it's one of the weirdest seasons you could ever think of, culminating with the dome thing. What can I say? The situation is, I think they're doing some more analysis over there. We'll know more about it. There's been some temporary damage to the roof, meaning the fabric. There's been some permanent damage to the superstructure. That's really more of concern. It's all a concern, but that's, you know, if it was just simply repair the fabric and blow it back up again, that would be one thing. But I think it's unfortunately a little more complicated than that. And frankly, we'll just have to know more in the next couple of weeks. And I can't say we have a super good insight this week. May have a little better in the next couple.
Do we have any sense of a timeline yet, or is it still too early to say?
They're working as fast as they can, and I think we'll have a better answer then.
The past November elections, we have the DFL is back in the governor's seat. Republicans have taken over the House and Senate. You know, how does this affect your work, your position?
Yeah.
How is it harder? How is it easier?
Well, you know, we've gone from split government, governor of one party, the legislature of the other, to split government. It's just flipped. Frankly, I think this is a little better because I loved having all those legislators from the same party as me, some of whom were very open to working with us. But it was pretty tough having a governor who seemed to go out of his way to take shots at the largest city in the state, especially when we were trying to help those most in need. So the way I look at it is we've gone from split government to split government, and the biggest difference is we no longer have a governor who tries to go out of his way to take a shot at the largest city in the state. I think, you know, Governor Dayton has been doing a really good job. And my former chief of staff, Tina Smith, is now his chief of staff. Our former finance director has just taken over as the chief administrator of the Metro Council. Some really good appointments have taken place statewide. It's nice to have a progressive voice in the governor's office. And you know, the day after the recount was done, laying in bed, the radio goes off, and I hear the governor last night talked to a business group and said that we can address the achievement gap by investing in early childhood. And I thought I was still in a dream because I was so unused to hearing that kind of language from the governor. That felt really good. And I have to say, I don't agree with everything Governor Dayton says. Well, you know, most people don't agree with everything everyone says. But I do have to say this. I think one thing about Governor Dayton is his values have always been in the right place. He is a person who believes in addressing historic inequities. He's somebody who wants to invest in schools and kids. He's somebody who's going to be a good partner in creating jobs. And he knows a lot more about state government than people remember. This is a former state auditor. This is the former economic development director, saying nothing of his time in the Senate. So it's not like he's walking around trying to figure out where the bathrooms are over there. He knows what he's doing. He's got strong values. And we'll see what's done. But so far, so good in my book.
How often do you and Governor Dayton speak? Has he offered you any advice? Have you offered him any advice?
We are on very friendly terms. I have a lot of respect for him, and you know, we have had very quick conversations. He's busy, but members of his administration have reached out on multiple different questions, and that's great. And I've given them my feedback, and some of those ideas they've taken. And but I know I'll get a fair shake. And by the way, I should say, you know, I just had meetings with the two top, Senator Michelle, Senator Koch, the two Republicans who lead the Senate. We had a great conversation about what we share in common. I think that's the right tone to start with. I'll work with anyone across party lines. We got to get some things done right now.
Of course, they are taking some pretty proactive measures to make cuts before Dayton unveils this budget. Today, they pushed to end the moratorium on nuclear. Any thoughts on kind of the aggressive measures that the GOP is taking?
Yeah, well, there are a couple things. First off, we got to stay focused on fixing the budget and creating jobs. And when they start to get into issues of nuclear and guns and all these sort of hot button issues, it seems to me to be we've got enough on our plate without distracting ourselves onto all these issues. That's number one. Number two, the first budget proposal they came out with led to a dramatic and pretty radical cut in partnership to cities that would really have a dramatic impact on how many police officers and firefighters we put on the street, how we repair our roads. I disagree with those. Let's wait for the governor's budget to come out. Let's see where he comes out on that. Let's try to solve the problem. Everybody's going to have to give in this thing because it's a mess. And it's not a mess for 1 year. It's a long-term structural mess because we haven't looked in the eye of the budget challenges of the state of Minnesota, period, okay? So everybody's got to give, and I know, you know, I will definitely be in the position of having to give, but $290 million has been cut out of this city's partnership with the state over the Politi years. That's equal to almost 3 years of the Minneapolis Police Department. That's a massive cut. And to a certain degree, that's been repeated in cities big and small across the state. And everybody's going to stand up and say, don't cut me, don't cut me. The fact of the matter is we're all going to have to make challenges, but I represent basic core services on the street. That's what my job is. That's what we do. And if there's this dramatically disproportionate cut to the most basic parts of government, I'm going to stand up and talk about it.
Minneapolis and St. Paul, I guess, are considered the best biking city in America. How did you learn that news, and how did you react?
There, if you go in my other room, there's a list on the top 10 moments of being mayor. One of them was when Minneapolis was named the #1 bike city in America. We'll defend that. The mayor of Portland was a really rotten loser on that. But I have told them Portland is just a street in Minneapolis because we're going to keep setting the tone. We won that, and then the first thing we did is turn around and launch Nice Ride, which at that time was the largest bike share program in the country. This little city called Washington, D.C. thought they'd do it bigger, but we still did it better. So we're going to keep doing that, but we're also going to include pushing the envelope a little bit. You know, that means we're going to experiment with things. On First Avenue North, we experimented with a strategy that has bike riders separated from the car traffic and put them closer to the curb for protection. Controversial, but we'll continue to do that. That's now common in many cities. So we're going to have to get out of the box a little bit to continue to make this a great bike city. Every time somebody rides a bike on this street, they're not in a car. That's less traffic, that's less congestion, that's less oil, that's less lots of things. And that's good for us, and so we're going to keep pushing that.
Do you care to share any of the other items on the top 10 list of being mayor?
Let's see. If I can remember right, one of those was when Alina decided to move into the Midtown Exchange, which launched the whole Midtown Exchange and global market, bringing Coloplast 600 jobs to North Minneapolis. When Xcel announced they would convert the Riverside coal plant to cleaner natural gas. Being named the fittest mayor in America is on that list. If I had 11, it would probably be getting to throw out the first pitch at a Twins game last year. You know, you get to do a lot of fun things. Oh, playing with the suburbs at First Avenue.
That's great.
Yeah, there have been some cool things that you get to do. There are some days where you deserve it because some days you just think, what in the heck just happened to me? It's like one anvil after the other dropped in your head. But I love my job. I've got the greatest job in the world, and I thank people for letting me do it.
I trust, though, that today it's a better the job than being mayor of Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I love snow, and by the way, this weekend, the City Lake Ski Lope It, it's going to be awesome. We may set a record for people participating. I really don't want 20 inches of snow coming to the city right now. Thank you very much. It's cost us a lot of money to do this snow plowing, so we're more than happy to let our friends from Chicago test out their plows instead of our beleaguered snow plowing budget.
Right. It's 5, so I want to let you get out of here. Just one more question. You have a very diverse city, including many Egyptians and Arab Americans. Yes. I mean, what does the news coming out of Cairo and Tahrir Square mean to you? How are you following it?
Well, first off, this is a city in the heartland of America that is a global city. We speak 100 languages. People have come from all over the world for generations to build this city, but especially now, we are very, very international, so we need to be deeply engaged in it. When there's a civil war in Somalia, it leads to the fact that we have the largest Somali population outside of Mogadishu. There are many Egyptians in Minneapolis, including one who works with us very closely. I was just talking to the other day, whose family is involved and is concerned about it. And so I think there are a couple things. One is I think it's very good that when there's people perceive there to be suppression, that they get out in the street and they fight for freedoms. I'm happy to see the president standing up and supporting people's right to protest. I can't pretend to know exactly everything that should take place on that right now, but I grew up in the Cold War. I grew up in a period of time where my country, based on freedom, too often slipped into the idea of supporting too many dictators around the world, and that is on our hands. I can't pretend to know everything that's going on in Egypt right now, but I do think that our country needs to represent freedom and freedom of expression. And we need to be on the right side on this one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.